Hi, in this lecture, we will discuss what is an argument, how to form an argument, and how to make your research writing argumentative. When we look at the word argument, we find that it is an ambiguous word. Yes, argument has more than one meaning. One meaning is an angry quarrel or disagreement, and another meaning is argument is an act or process of doing research, arguing, reasoning, or discussing. All these parts of research are important and they make your research writing argumentative. When we look at the nature of this word, we find that one meaning has negative connotation, whereas another meaning has positive connotation. When you argue with someone, then you lose your reasoning. Whereas when you put an argument into your research, it demands lot of reasoning. Moreover, when you form an argument in a research, you are engaged in written communication. Whereas when you are arguing with a person, then you are engaged in an oral communication. So why do people argue? Let's take this into consideration. And this will also show some light on the functions of argument. We will take two examples. Example one, a young woman wants a tattoo and argues with her mother who forbids her from getting one. Now, one person is arguing with another person, and we need to understand why one person is arguing with another person. We, when we look at this example carefully, we find that the young woman might assert her independence. Another reason is from mother's point of view that there is a possibility that mother is a conventional mother and she doesn't like tattoos and other things related to that. So this is a conflict between a daughter and a mother. And we need to understand the reason behind that conflict. And when we try to understand the reason behind the conflict, we will get to know the function of an argument. So here we have a function. A girl, a growing up daughter, wants to assert her independence. Let's take another example. Sometimes students become so preoccupied with the format of essay writing, an introduction and a conclusion, they forget the essay's main purpose. It must have something to say on a particular subject. Where do you find such type of sentences? You find such type of sentences in prose writing and particularly instructional prose writing. Here this prose is instructing you what you need to do when you are writing an essay. What are the things which are important when you write an essay? So you need to take those things into consideration. So what is the function? What is the function of this, this one sentence that we have? When we analyze this, we find that content is more important than the format. So if your content is not good, then your essay writing will not be a good essay writing. So that you need to take care of. You need to give priority to content rather than the format. Why I have taken these two examples? One example is from a daily life. Two people can argue on anything. But as a researcher, your task is to look beyond the normalized discourse. You need to find out what is the function of that particular argument. And another example is from any prose that you have, and you need to again find out what is the function, why writer is writing these things. This is the first step if you want to learn how to formulate an argument. Now let's look at the qualities of an argument. Arguments are dialogic. Now, what is the meaning of dialogic? In an argument, you will find more than one voice. That means argument is a dialogue and not a monologue. And in an argument, you will find that many voices are exchanging their ideas with zero hostility. When we have zero hostility, then we can ensure that every voice is heard in an argument. So we can say that argument is the manifestation of democracy, and dissent is the enactment of argument. Even dissent and differences are not only accepted but appreciated in an argument. So arguments create a dialogue with text. You read a text, you read an author. Now, author is not present in front of you, but when you formulate an argument, then in fact you are talking with the text, you are talking with the author who is actually absent. So arguments enable you to say something new. The seventh point, this quality makes an argument an argument. That means you need to add something new, then the author, then the text, then more than one voices will be heard. And then you will exchange your ideas about the text, about an author. So these are the qualities of an argument. Now there are certain views on arguments and discourse. When it comes to discourse, Bakhtin, Voloshinov, and Medvedev, they believe that discourse is an expression of ideology. The meaning is when you form an argument, then argument is an exchange of views. Argument is an opinion. Argument is your voice. And when I say an argument is your voice, your opinion, an exchange of views, that means in an argument, subjectivity exists. And when subjectivity exists, that means there is some ideology behind that argument. There is some opinion. There is some point of view. There is a way of thinking that makes you to say what you said. Voloshinov and Medvedev examine discourse in relation to context and not an abstract system of sign like linguists inspired by Saussure. So when we talk about discourse, then context comes into play. Something is said, but not what is said is important, but why, in which context it is said, that is more important than what is said. That is to say that signs, the language that is used while saying something, while formulating a discourse, is not that important, but in what context something is said, that is more important. Considering this, the context, Bakhtin believes that novel is a discourse. Because novel is the prime example of carnivalized literature. Because like the medieval carnival, it is a site where orthodoxies are contested, satirized, and undermined. What do we find in a discourse? Particularly, what do we find in a novel? In a novel, there are characters, there are settings, there are stories, and fictional things happen in a novel. Now, those fictional things are not normalized, they are contesting. Sometimes a tradition, a culture, a ritual is satirized. Sometimes a situation is undermined. So this is an example. That is an example. Novel is an example. Novel is a site where unheard voices are heard, and that makes a novel as a discourse. Bakhtin also posited his views on being and meaning. Now, what is a being? Being, when we attach this word being with human, it becomes human being. And human being is not a complete product. Human being is always in a process of becoming. That is to say, what we are is not one meaning, one final product. Every day we define ourselves. Every day we define things that we perceive, that we observe. So with human beings, we have no fixed meanings. Something that is meaningful for me today, there is a possibility that in future it will become meaningless. For certain things which I am undermining now, there is a possibility that in future I take into consideration more carefully. So we will look at this meaningfulness with a term, heteroglossia. Now this is a term given by Bakhtin, and what is the meaning of the term heteroglossia? It means multiple languages of various social groups that a novel must be composed of. As I said, in a novel, we find various voices, marginalized voices, various unheard voices in a fictionalized situation. That is heteroglossia. That's why novels are important, because they create a discourse. And for Bhaktin, being is always a process that necessitates constant dialogue with a world. When I say as a human being, we are we are always moving from one meaning to another meaning. That means when we move from one meaning to another meaning, then we create a dialogue with the world. It's not a dialogue like an argument, uh, like like we are arguing with a person, but we are we are showing our opinion, we are showing our point of view, we are showing the way how we think through various modes, through our likes, dislikes, through our memes, through our Facebook post, through our informal comments. All these are mediums through which we as human being shows that how we are in always a process of meaning making. So when I say when I move, or when you move from one meaning to another meaning, that means you are interacting. You are interacting, and it is impossible for an individual to have a sense of a self without interaction. So when you interact, then you can realize yourself. If you do not interact with any other person, then you won't really realize yourself, your self-esteem. So this interaction is very important. Multiple voices are very important, and when multiple voices and interaction is important, then meaningfulness becomes possible, because You are in a dialogue. You are in a dialogue with the world. Then Bhaktin argues that being and meaning are continually redefined through a lifetime's dialogue with others. We daily define ourselves each day. It is a different thing that we do not notice, but daily we define ourselves some way or the other. And Bhaktin further says that every utterance is not only a response to a previous utterance, but anticipates a future response. That is to say, an interaction has so many utterances and it is a circular process. We do not know when the interaction starts or when the interaction will end. It is a circular process where a response is an outcome of a previous utterance, but at the same time, a response will also anticipate a future response. So this is our theoretical background, how we can form an argument. We need to take into consideration all such things when we are forming an argument. And during argumentative writing, we are not only damaging or diminishing text, but producing their meanings because they cannot exist in isolation. So if we are simply accepting what is there in a text, then we are not in a dialogue with the text. In order to be in a dialogue, you are producing many meanings. And even if you are in confrontation with the writer, even if you are in a confrontation with the text, then it is not that you are damaging it or you are diminishing text, but you are making that text more meaningful. Now, how this word dialogue and argument, these two words are associated with democracy. The word dialogue clubbed with argument has clear democratic connotations, incorporating the free and continual exchange of ideas among those who are equal in power. It is our democratic right and responsibility to find something to say. In a democratic society, we can say what we want to say. And in a democratic society, more than one voices are heard. Arguments are appreciated. And arguments are never ended. So there is always a free flow and continual exchange of ideas in a democratic setup. So in a democracy, dialogue is very much the part of democracy. Argument is the essence of democracy that we have. Now we also need to look at what is an argument and what is not. As we have seen that argument is a continuous process. One utterance follows another, progressing or perhaps regressing by return to previous made points through a period of time. So this continue, as I said, like in an interaction, there are various utterances, and those utterances are in a circular process. So you do not know which one starts first, which one initiates the discourse, and which utterance will end the discourse. It is a wheel. It is a continuous process that we have. So an example of an argument is a seminar, and how a seminar is more democratic than a lecture. In a lecture, there is a monologue. There are students and a teacher is delivering a lecture. There is a possibility that a student may ask a couple of questions and the teachers will clarify their doubts. But there is a possibility that due to time limitation, when the time is up, the lecturer will simply leave the class. without addressing the student's doubt. So these possibilities are there, but in a seminar, when the person addresses, when the person presents his research or any other topic, then there is a time where audience may raise their doubt, when the audience may cross question the presenter. So there is a chance for debate, there is a chance for challenging the ideas presented by the presenter. So this is how a seminar is argumentative, whereas a lecture is not argumentative. Now this is one simple process, and this process is physically reconstructed. How you can initiate an argument when you are reading a text. This approach is known as the folded paper approach to argument. This approach is devised by S.L. Mayer. And what will happen in this approach? So this approach asks you to speak for and against the text you are studying and physically reconstructed the idea of a dialogue. It encourages you to use your own voice to question the text. So how you will do that? So there are two steps. First step is you need to fold a piece of paper in half vertically, or you can create a Word document with 2 columns. This is the first step. The second step is on the left side of the page, you will make statements about what the text is saying, and on the right side, you will question these statements. So let's assume you are reading a prose, you are reading an essay. In an essay, you have many paragraphs. So you read one paragraph, and what you will do, you will write the summary of that paragraph on the left hand side. And on the right hand side, you will question those summarized statements. You will cross question them. You will give them your voice. It can be in favor of that, or it can be against those statements. So technically, with this approach, with the folded paper approach, you can take any text, you can subject any text to this process. And even it is a poetry like a sonnet, so you can write one line, each line on the left hand side, and on the right hand side, you can question the line, you can give your voice to that line. Either it can be a short essay or it can be a novel. And when it is a novel, because novel has hundreds of pages, so you can divide the novels, and you can take certain excerpts from that novel, and the same process you can continue with the novel as well. So now here I have taken Raymond Williams, The Country and the City. This is a prose, this is an essay, and The Country and the City analyzes the perceived dichotomy between rural and urban life through a survey of text from the 18th to 20th century with reference to economic and social history. So 2 centuries, and the texts that were written in 2 centuries are covered by Raymond Williams in the essay titled The Country and the City. Now, when we look at this word country, then country has 2 meanings. One meaning is the nation, another meaning is the rural area. So what I have done in the left hand side, I have summarized the first paragraph in few lines. So what is this summary? Country and city are powerful words. Country can mean a whole nation or just its rural area. there is a connection between the land and the city. This is a summarized version of Raymond Williams' first paragraph of the city, of the country and the city. Now, what are my questions here? So I'm just raising my voice. Surely you can argue that this connection is not deeply known. What is the connection? Do we really all get our living from the land? Now I'm giving my voice in my questions. So nowhere in the summary uh, it is mentioned that we are getting our living from the land, but I have raised this question. I have also raised this question that what is the connection? What is the connection when we compare the country and the city? So this is how you can give your voice. You can add something new to the text. Now the second paragraph, and again I have summarized the second paragraph in the left hand side column. There are strong and generalized oppositions in the way that the country and the city are viewed. These have existed since classical times. Now, what is my voice? What is my question? Is Raymond Williams going to suggest that these oppositions are false? So I'm just raising my doubt against Raymond Williams' views. Can I find literary text and other document that will support or challenge these notions? Now I am taking help of intertextuality. I would like to know whether I can find other documents, other literary text in support or against the notions posited by Raymond Williams. This is how you can start with an argumentative writing. Argumentative writing is basically a rhetorical type. You need to raise certain questions and then you need to answer them. Then the third paragraph, you have the real history of rural and urban places is not homogeneous, but is astonishingly varied. So this is a very brief summary of third paragraph. And now, as you can see, my opinion, where does his notion of real history come from? So which history Raymond Williams is talking about? Is there something known as real history? Why have the oppositions been formed then? Why Raymond Williams has used? Because when we use real history and then we have a dichotomy, the country and the city. So how much this dichotomy is valid when I'm talking about the real history? How can I divide the real history into two? So this is again a question. Then similarly, paragraph 4 is summarized. He is going to analyze the persistent images and associations in this book. Now, what I am questioning, will this contradict his assertion of difference in the statement above? Is he going to explain why these associations have been formed? So I'm making a guess as well, because systematically, let's say I'm reading this fourth paragraph on page number 2, and the rest of the essay, rest of the prose writing I have not read. But I can raise my guess, I can raise my questions, and there is a possibility that I may find certain answers during the process of reading, or there is the possibility that I may not find. But this is how you can initiate with forming an argument. You can initiate with an argumentative writing. The thing is, you need to put your opinion. You need to ask questions, and through this process, you can make your writing argumentative. So we have discussed the notion of argument, how argument in writing, in research writing, has a positive connotation, and what is the importance and significance of argument in research writing, how you can form it, and once you write something, particularly in your research, then your voice must be heard. So this is we have discussed in this lecture. We will discuss other topics related to literature, linguistics, and theories in future videos. Thank you for watching.